Okay, you guys, where did all my miniatures go?
I don't know. They were here last time we played.
I can barely keep track of my hit points. And you want me to remember where you keep your minis?
Hey, wait a second. Didn't I see you playing with all the minis after the last game session?
Maybe?
Okay, just tell me where they are so we can start the game.
I might have broken them all.
You broke my minis?
What an idiot!
Yeah, this is bullcrap. Now we have to buy new minis because of this idiot.
Indeed. If only there were a way to buy cheap miniatures. Welcome to the DM Lair. I'm Luke Hart, and I've been a high school since Dungeon Master. On this channel, I give practical Dungeon Master advice that you can implement at your game table. Today, we're going to look at the 3 best ways I know to get cheap miniatures for your games, because I know exactly what it's like to be a Dungeon Master on a budget. We're also going to discuss some even cheaper alternatives to miniatures that you can use. Board games that come with miniatures. Hands down, the best way I've found to get miniatures for cheap are through some board games that Wizards of the Coast makes. This right here is Wrath of Ashardalon, and it comes with about 40 miniatures for about $50 on Amazon. That's a little over $1 a mini. You cannot beat that. It also includes these large minis, a Drake and an Otyugh. Otyugh, however you pronounce that. And this right here is a huge Red Dragon mini. I also have the Legend of Drizzt, which comes with about 40 miniatures for $50. It includes 2 large trolls, a shadow dragon, and a huge baler. So not only are you getting lots of medium-sized creatures, but also some large and huge ones. That's an insane deal. What I also love with these mini sets is they come with several miniatures for your adventuring party. So your players get minis to represent their characters too. Now I also have the giant minis from the Assault of the Giants board game. You don't get quite as many minis with this one, and the giants are also only large, which kind of sucks to be honest because giants in D&D are huge. But what I do is I just use them on a large base though, so it's not totally a showstopper. However, I have found the minis from the Assault of the Giants board game to be rather brittle. I dropped a fire giant onto the carpet from about 1 foot in the air, and the sword snapped off. I mean, I just super glued it right back on, but it still rather surprised me. However, the miniatures from the first 2 board games I mentioned do seem to be of much better quality. Even then, however, we are talking super cheap minis, so I think our expectations should not be too terribly high. If we want high quality, then we wouldn't be talking cheap now, would we? I also want to mention that the miniatures of the board games I just mentioned came unpainted, so you do actually need to paint them yourselves. Now, I actually have been showing lots of B-roll in this video here of the minis from these board games, and you'll probably have noticed that some of them are painted, but that's because I painted them. They didn't actually come that way. However, I actually view the unpainted minis as a positive because I enjoy painting miniatures, and I hate the crappy paint jobs that most pre-painted miniatures come with. Call me a painting snob if you want, but I'd rather have an unpainted mini than one with a 3-color shoddy paint job. Now there are also other board games that come with minis, and I'll rattle off the list here. Just bear in mind that I don't personally own them quite yet. According to the descriptions and comments though, some of them do come pre-painted. Tomb of Annihilation, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Temple of Elemental Evil, and Castle Ravenloft. Oh, and a bonus of buying these board games is that not only do you get lots of awesome miniatures, but you also get a board game. So you and your friends can play a D&D-like board game too if you want. Of course, there is a link in the description to my Amazon page where you can find all of these miniatures listed. But board games are just one way to get cheap minis. There are a couple other ways I recommend as well.
But first, let me tell you about an inexpensive alternative to miniatures that I found. These right here are tactical tokens. They're full color on one side, and then when the monster's dead, you flip it over to the black and white side.
Hey, those actually look pretty darn cool. I bet they're cheaper than actual miniatures too, aren't they?
They sure are. They're super high quality and a whole lot easier to carry around than miniatures too.
And I'll even bet there's a link in the description to them.
Yep, there sure is. And you know what? These are actually what I'm going to buy for my Dungeon Master to replace all of the miniatures that I broke.
The next best way I know to get loads of miniatures for between $1 and $2 each is on eBay. Now, this will involve bidding on miniatures, and it could take some time to get that killer deal. But what you want to do is look for miniature lots so that you can buy groups of minis. You'll get the best possible price this way. For instance, here I typed in D&D miniature lot, and you can see that it returned small to large groups of minis. If you're patient and hunt around, you can find some really good deals. In the past, I've seen lots of 50-some minis going for like $100. That's $2 each, and that's a pretty good price. And it does bear mentioning that many of the miniatures I generally see on eBay are pre-painted. Now that's either a good thing or a bad thing depending on what you're looking for. Next are Reaper Bones minis. Man, I love Reaper Bones. They are very high quality and will usually bend way before they break, so they can put up with some really good abuse. Not that I recommend abusing your minis, I tend to treat them like my beloved children. And here's a quick tip too. If a Reaper Bones mini comes a little bent, you can use a spoon to lower it into boiling water for about 30 seconds, remove it, push the bent part back into place, don't worry, it's not going to be super hot or anything, and then dunk it in ice water, holding the part in place. Keep it in the ice water for a few minutes and voila! The bent part stays put. And you can also repeat this as needed for stubborn bent minis. Now this trick may or may not work for other plastic minis, but I've used it a lot with Reaper Bones to straighten swords and other parts out. Bones come as cheap as $3, but many of them are in the range of $4 to $5. There is of course a link in the description to Reaper Bones. Now, if these options are still out of your price range, then here are some quick ideas for miniature alternatives. First thing is to use dice to represent miniatures. You can also use candy, M&M, Skittles, Hershey's Kisses, and all of that make great minis. And when something dies, you can eat them. Another great trick that I've seen someone use is to print out small images of creatures, cut them into circles, and attach them to washers. It creates a cool little mini with a little bit of weight to it. Now, if you know other ways to get cheap minis or have miniature alternatives, please let us know down in the comments. If you're interested in learning how to build awesome encounters for your games, click my encounter building playlist right here. And until next time,
I gotta go buy some tactical tokens before my Dungeon Master squashes me.